She only downloaded the app as a joke, just one swipe, one glass of wine, one dare. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was younger too, sincere, too sharp for someone who still believed in second chances. But fate didn't care about timing. One accidental match turned into late-night coffees, quiet arguments, and the kind of connection neither of them could unfeel. She told him, "You're too young for regret." He smiled and said, "Then maybe I'm exactly the age you need." Elise Camden hadn't meant to swipe right. She was 2 glasses of wine and wearing a silk robe and an expression of mild contempt as her best friend Vera narrated aloud the parade of dating profiles streaming across her phone. "Listen to this one," Vera said, giggling. "Creative, adventurous, not afraid of spiders." "Okay, he gets points for honesty." Elise rolled her eyes. "He also looks like he's posing with a dead fish." "Swipe left," Vera said decisively. "You're not allowed to date anyone who puts gym rat or Bitcoin in their bio." Elise scoffed. "Or uses the word sapiosexual. It's the fedora of adjectives." They were sitting cross-legged on Elise's living room floor surrounded by half-eaten sushi and candlelight. The idea to download Blender had been Vera's. Elise had only agreed because, in her words, "Fine, let's do it for anthropological reasons." That was 2 hours ago. Now her thumb hovered over a photo of a man with dark eyes, a faint scar on his left eyebrow, and a grin that was almost genuine. He looked young, too young, but his bio was short and clear. "Jamie, 25, documentary editor, can hold eye contact in a decent conversation." "Big believer in second takes. Looks like a soft boy," Elise said, narrowing her eyes. Vera peered over. "Soft boys are in," Elise smirked. "I don't need soft, I need solid and legal." She meant to swipe left, but the cat jumped on her lap. Her thumb slipped, and the app chirped in confirmation. "You matched with Jamie." "Damn it," she muttered. Vera cackled. "The universe ships it." Elise groaned and tossed her phone face down on the floor. "No way I'm messaging him." Jamie Brooks wasn't used to matching with women like her. He noticed the age gap immediately, but what caught him wasn't her photo. It was the line in her profile, "Professional liar." "I design museum exhibits." And something about her eyes in that picture, like she knew something you didn't and wasn't going to tell you unless you really earned it. He messaged her, "So what kind of lies does a museum exhibit designer tell?" No response for a full day. Then, "That Cleopatra was blonde, that 12th century armor, weighed less than your ego that any of it still matters." He stared at her reply for a while, grinning. "Touché. Coffee and fact-checking sometime. Only if you can defend your opinion on Werner Herzog in under 30 seconds. That was a week ago. Now he was sitting at a corner table in a downtown cafe watching the door, wondering what kind of person quoted Herzog as a flirting filter. It was a Tuesday just after 4. The cafe was more plant shop than restaurant, ivy dripping from shelves, Edison bulbs, glowing low jazz, humming faintly overhead. Jamie checked his phone. Still no new messages. He was about to order a second espresso when the door swung open and in walked Elise. She wasn't dressed to impress. That somehow made it worse. Black high-waisted jeans, a simple dark green sweater, tucked in ankle boots, hair up in a casual twist that looked effortless and very much wasn't. No makeup that screamed for attention, but her eyes were lined, and her mouth, even unpainted, was the kind you noticed. She scanned the room, saw him walked over with the poise of someone used to entering a room like she owned it. "Jamie," she said, not smiling. "Elise," he said, standing. They shook hands. Hers was cool, her grip deliberate. No Herzog shirt, she noted, sitting across from him. "No defense required," he said. "You passed the first test." "And what test was that? You showed up." She tilted her head. "You expected I wouldn't?" Jamie shrugged. "Honestly, yes. I figured you realized how young I was and ghosted." Her lips curved barely. "Don't flatter yourself. I was just busy." He watched her. "With work or with reasons not to come?" "Both," she said plainly, but curiosity won. The server approached. Elise ordered black coffee, Jamie tea. They sat in the low hum of the cafe, sizing each other up. So she said, "Documentary editor. That's real or one of those vague film-adjacent lies people tell?" "To sound creative on apps, it's real," Hami said, sipping. "I cut together a lot of footage of other people living interesting lives." She studied him. Do you like it? Sometimes when it feels like truth. She smiled almost involuntarily. That's dangerously idealistic for someone your age. He raised an eyebrow. You think I'm too young to want truth? No, Elise said, leaning back. I think you're too young to regret not getting it. There was a beat. Then Jaime grinned. Then maybe I'm exactly the age you need. She laughed. He saw it the flicker of surprise on her face when she did. Okay, she said. Point Brooks. They talked about films, museums, cities they'd loved and left. She had a biting sense of humor that kept him on his toes. He had a calm, observant presence that unnerved her more than she'd admit. At some point, they realized an hour had passed. Jaime glanced at her half-empty cup. You always this hard to read, Elise smirked. You always this eager to try. He leaned forward slightly. Only when I know I shouldn't. She looked at him then longer than she had all afternoon. You're very charming, she said. And you're very careful, he replied. She stood. That's a polite way of calling me distant. I didn't say it was a bad thing. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder. This was fine, Jaime. He rose too. Fine's a start. Elise hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a pen, and scribbled something on the back of a napkin. She slid it across the table. My number. For when you think of something more interesting to say than coffee again sometime. Jamie took it grinning. That's a lot of pressure. Consider it a challenge. She turned and walked away, boots clicking on tile coat swaying. The door swung shut behind her. Jaime sat back down, looked at the number, then at the seat she just left. He exhaled slowly, the grin still tugging at his lips. This was not what he expected. She was older, sharper more than he was used to, and definitely not someone looking for a fling. But God, she made maybe sound like the best word in the world. And right now, maybe was all he needed. Elise didn't think about him the next morning. That's what she told herself. She thought about her deadline, about the vintage marble pedestal that had cracked mid-shipment from Berlin, about the intern who forgot to seal the humidity cases in the East Gallery, and about the headache forming just behind her left eye. But not Jamie Brooks, not his napkin with that grin-inducing challenge, accepted wink. Not the way he looked at her, not like someone trying to impress her, but like someone genuinely interested. Definitely not the line he'd left her with, the one she refused to say aloud again, because it still made something pull in her chest. You're too young to regret not getting it. Then maybe I'm exactly the age you need. Ridiculous. She was 37. She paid property taxes and matched her Tupperware lids. She knew better. Still, when her phone buzzed during a staff meeting and she saw an unknown number with a text that read, "Okay, I have something more interesting than coffee. You free this week?" She stared at it for a beat too long, then typed back, "Define interesting." Jamie had suggested something unconventional. Not dinner, not drinks, but a documentary screening. An underground cinema series held in the back room of a plant shop downtown, folding chairs. Mood lighting, experimental, film-free wine in solo cups. She almost said no. Then she said maybe. Then she told herself she was going because she liked film, not because she liked him. She wore a black silk blouse, slim trousers, low heels, effortless, but curated. The kind of outfit that said, yes, I'm older, but I dress like a woman who has options. He was already there when she arrived, leaning against a wall of potted vines, talking with the guy running the projector like they were old friends. He wore a soft charcoal t-shirt, dark jeans, and a corduroy jacket that looked like it had survived at least 2 cities and 3 breakups. She liked that. Camden, he said when he spotted her. You showed I'm a woman of my word, she replied, brushing past him. Though the jury's still out on your definition of interesting, it's a Romanian short film about silence, he said with a smirk. Very pretentious, very you. She shot him a look. You don't know me well enough to be sarcastic yet. Sure I do, he said, falling into step beside her. You're sharp, mildly terrifying, and have opinions about gallery lighting. She narrowed her eyes. And you're 25 with too much charm and no filter. Exactly. He beamed. We're evenly matched. She was still smirking as the lights dimmed. The film was in fact very pretentious, also very beautiful. Mostly black and white shots of a woman walking through snow, intercut with archival audio of protests, whispered poetry, and long aching silences. Elise felt the edges of herself relax, watching it like a part of her that had been braced too long had forgotten why. She didn't notice Jaime watching her during one of those silences. Not until afterward, when they stepped out into the cool night and he said, "You looked peaceful." She turned to him. "Is that your post-film pickup line?" "No," he said. "That's just me noticing." She exhaled slowly. "Well, thank you. It was different. I'm glad I came." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "Want to grab a drink, or is this where you vanish back into your elegant shell and tell yourself this never happened?" She looked at him, then saw the challenge in his eyes, but not arrogance, just curiosity, maybe even hope. "I have 30 minutes before I turn back into a pumpkin," she said. "There's a bar a block over. Quiet, no DJs. Lead the way, Cinderella." They sat in a corner booth, wood paneling, and soft lamps making everything feel closer than it was. She ordered a neat gin. He got a local amber ale. They talked not about the usual things, not work, not what they were looking for, but about the things that floated beneath those topics. "Do you believe in second chances?" he asked her halfway through his second beer. She swirled her gin. "Depends who's asking. Someone who gave too many of them," he said, until he stopped giving them at all. She watched him. "What happened?" "Friendship business blurred lines. He stole a project I pitched, sold it solo, got the credit, left me burnt and 5 months behind rent." "That's brutal." He shrugged. "I kept thinking if I'd been older, maybe I'd have seen it coming. But I wasn't, so I didn't." She sipped. "Wisdom doesn't prevent betrayal. It just makes you angrier when it happens." He smiled. "That sounds like personal experience." "My ex-fiancé," she said simply. Jamie stilled. "You don't have to—" "I want to," she interrupted. "It's just not a short story." He waited. Elise exhaled. "We were together for 4 years, engaged for one. He didn't cheat. He didn't lie. He just evaporated emotionally every day a little more until I was the only one talking in the room. I finally called it. He thanked me, said I was brave, then married someone else a year later." Jaime didn't respond immediately. He reached across the table, fingers brushing hers just once. "That sounds like it broke something," he said. She blinked. "I don't do broken. I didn't say you were. I said it hurt." She looked down at her hand. "It did." Jamie sat back. "For what it's worth, he was an idiot." "And you're 25, she said, arching a brow. "You haven't earned the right to call older men idiots yet." He grinned. "I'm making up for lost time." They left the bar just after midnight. He walked her to her car, hands in pockets, jacket collar flipped up against the breeze. "You're too young," she said suddenly, the words slipping out unfiltered. He turned to her, smile fading. "Too young for what? For what this could turn into, for how complicated I already am." He stepped closer. "Then maybe I'm not here for simple." Elise shook her head. "Jaime, I'm not asking for forever," he said. "I'm asking for the next conversation." She stared at him, then leaned forward and kissed him. Brief, firm mouth brushing his, just enough to burn. When she pulled back, her voice was low. "That was a mistake," he smirked. "Then it's my favorite kind." She got in her car, didn't look back. And Jamie, he stood there smiling like he'd already won something he hadn't even asked for yet. Elise hadn't kissed anyone in a year. The last time had been perfunctory, predictable. A goodbye kiss before someone she didn't miss stepped into a lift and disappeared. She hadn't felt anything after. Not guilt, not longing, but this brief, stubborn, low-voltage spark of a kiss with Jamie Brooks kept showing up in her thoughts, like a melody she couldn't stop humming. She didn't regret it. She just didn't want it to matter, which is why she did what she always did. When emotions threatened routine, she worked. The exhibit for the city's 150th anniversary was already behind schedule, and Elise used that fact as armor. She stayed late, rewrote audio scripts, rearranged floor plans, supervised lighting and digital projections. She told herself it wasn't avoidance, just dedication. And then 3 days after the kiss, Jamie texted, "I was going to pretend I didn't notice you ghosted me, but I like honesty more than pride." She read it 3 times, then exhaled slowly. "I wasn't ghosting, just regrouping." "Want help regrouping?" "I make great pancakes and terrible small talk. I don't do breakfast dates." "Then let's call it breakfast proximity." She shouldn't have agreed, but she did. His apartment was temporary minimal furniture, mismatched mugs, a half-unpacked suitcase near the door. The place smelled like bergamot tea and wood polish. I forgot how bare this place looked in the daylight, Jamie said, scratching his head as he poured batter into a pan. Don't judge the lack of art. Still deciding if I like walls without movement. Elise wandered past his laptop where an editing timeline glowed with a paused frame of a woman's face in shadow. Is this your doc? She asked. One of them, he said. This one's about grief rituals, how people try to name what can't be fixed. She turned. That's heavy. So are pancakes, he replied. It balances. He slid a plate toward her, syrup already drizzled, butter melting like slow gold. She picked up a fork, more amused than hungry. So this is your seduction strategy. Feed me carbs until I'm too full to think straight. No, Jaime said. My strategy is honesty. The pancakes are just a bonus. She hesitated. Why me? He tilted his head. Why not you? I'm not your age. I'm not your scene. You're the most interesting person I've met in months, and you made me want to be better without demanding it. Elise froze. Jaime watched her gently. You're not used to being seen like that, are you? No, she admitted. Let me. It wasn't a line. It wasn't even flirtation. It was the kind of thing someone only says when they mean it. So she stayed. They spent the rest of the day talking on his worn-in couch, then walking to a bookstore nearby, then standing in line for espresso as the sky turned gray. At one point, Elise admitted something she hadn't said aloud in years. I used to sculpt, she murmured, tracing the rim of her cup. Bronze marble. I wanted to make things people remembered touching. Jaime blinked. What happened? My hands started shaking. Not medically, just mentally. I lost the edge. I traded tools for curation. It felt safer. He didn't speak right away then. You ever want to pick it back up? She looked at him. I don't let myself want things. I don't trust myself to keep. Jaime reached over, palm up. I think wanting is brave. She stared at his hand, then took it, and he didn't let go. That night, as she lay in bed, Elise stared at the ceiling and tried to name the feeling. It wasn't infatuation. That was too flimsy. It wasn't safety either. It was recognition. He didn't just see her. He heard the things she didn't say. That was dangerous. The next week became a rhythm, texting every morning, coffee, some afternoons, a second kiss on a bench. At the Riverwalk, slower this time, no apologies after. Then came Thursday. She was walking through the exhibit's sculpture wing when she got a call from the production studio. Jamie had collapsed on set. Nothing serious, they said. Heat exhaustion. He hadn't eaten all day, but he was being sent home early. She didn't think. She just got in her car. He looked pale when she arrived, half sprawled on his couch, cold compress on his head, his laptop open beside him with unfinished edits blinking like an accusation. You're here, he said, surprised. You're an idiot, she replied, setting down a grocery bag and sitting beside him. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't wrapped in plastic? Tuesday. Jesus. She handed him orange juice, then unpacked a sandwich and soup, muttering the whole time. Jaime smiled through all of it. I like this side of you, he said. What side? The worried one. Elise rolled her eyes. You're ridiculous. You care, he said softly. She didn't deny it. Instead, she brushed hair from his forehead and whispered, Don't scare me like that again. Jamie caught her wrist gently. Elise, he said, you don't want it to make your life messier. You're not, but I will be. She held his gaze. That's not your choice to make. And then she kissed him again, slow, full of feeling, a kind of apology for all the walls she'd still keep up. They didn't sleep together that night, but she stayed. And when he woke the next morning, she was still there, sitting on the floor beside his couch, sketching a sculpture idea into the margin of a coffee receipt. For the first time in years, Elise wasn't editing herself. She was just beginning. Jamie hadn't told her he was leaving, not exactly. He'd hinted once or twice that the documentary contract was short-term, that his stay wasn't permanent. But Elise had filed those remarks away like vague possibilities, not truths. Now the word wrap floated in the middle of his message like a final breath. Just wrapped our last interview today. Might have a week left here. Want to see you tonight. Elise stared at the screen. Heart paused mid-beat. She reread the text once, twice, then tucked the phone face down on her nightstand and paced to the kitchen. He hadn't lied. He just hadn't stayed. Not that she'd asked him to, not that she ever would. Still, she was angry in a way that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with how she'd let herself begin to hope. At the museum, she was quiet, too quiet. Elise gave notes without inflection, redirected the lighting crew with one raised eyebrow, and barely looked at the interns trying to get her approval on the final layout of the immersive history alcove. Her assistant trailed behind her at one point and asked, "Did the gallery ghost say something offensive again?" "Oh," Elise muttered, flipping through her clipboard. "The ghost's fine. It's the living who are complicated." She didn't text Hammy back until nearly 6 p.m. "Come over 8. Don't bring wine. Just yourself." He replied immediately. "On my way." She hated how fast her stomach flipped reading it. The knock on her door was soft. Jaime stood there in his usual way, understated patient, like someone who'd knock only once and leave if she didn't answer. Elise opened the door and let him in wordlessly. The apartment smelled like ice and bergamot. One low lamp was lit in the corner. Her hair was loose. She wore a soft gray sweater and black silk pants, relaxed but elegant. Jaime stepped in and closed the door behind him. "You're mad," he said gently. "I'm not," she replied, walking to the kitchen. He followed. "Okay, then you're somewhere between cold and resigned. I'm aware." He leaned against the counter. "So are you going to say it, or should I say that you thought I'd tell you sooner? That you feel blindsided? That maybe for 1 second you thought this was going somewhere?" Her hands trembled as she poured 2 glasses of water. She didn't look at him when she said, "I don't do long distance. I didn't ask you to." "Exactly." Jamie stepped closer. "But you're still upset." "I don't get attached easily," she whispered. "But when I do, it's like muscle memory. And I hate how easily I slipped into it with you." He reached out gently, his fingers brushing hers. "You think this was easy for me?" he asked. "I came here to hide from everything that broke me. You were never part of the plan. Then why didn't you stay away? Because you made me feel like something worth coming back to." That cracked something in her. She stepped back. "This isn't fair," she said. "You're 25. You'll leave and I'll go back to being a museum piece you once admired." Jamie's voice was quiet. "That's not what I see when I look at you. Then what I see the person who made me want to start over for real this time." She didn't respond, just turned away. Jamie waited, and then so softly she didn't think he'd hear. She said, "I started sculpting again." Jamie blinked. She turned back around, hands crossed over her stomach. "Last week. Clay. Just sketches. Nothing finished." "That's not nothing," he said. "It is for me. I stopped trusting myself a long time ago." He moved forward. "Let me see it." She hesitated. "Why? Because I want to know the version of you that creates." Elise swallowed, then slowly walked to the closet in the hallway. Inside was a box tucked neatly behind old coats and unused heels. She pulled out a canvas-wrapped form and laid it on the table. Jaime unwrapped it with care. It wasn't finished, just a bust, a face half-formed, jawline sketched with gentle lines, one eye not yet shaped, but it was alive in a way Elise hadn't let herself be in years. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "No, it's tentative." Jaime looked up. "So am I." And with that, she exhaled and finally met his gaze. "I don't know what to do with you," she said. "Then don't do anything," he said. "Just let this matter, whatever it is, however long it lasts." She closed the distance between them and kissed him this time without apology or pretense. And when they made love that night, it wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was quiet, intentional, honest. Afterwards, she lay curled against his chest, fingers tracing circles along his collarbone, and whispered, "You'll leave." He kissed the top of her head. "Yes," he said, "but I'll remember you. And I'll come back," she added, "if you'll let me." Jami smiled. She didn't say yes, she didn't say no, but she held on tighter, and that was enough for now. Jaime left on a Thursday morning. No fanfare, no tearful goodbyes, just a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, headphones around his neck, and the same soft smile he wore the first time he saw her. Elise stood in the doorway of her apartment robe, wrapped tight coffee cooling in her hand. She told herself not to memorize him, not to etch the moment into her chest. But memory has its own agenda. He turned back at the elevator, gave her one last look. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded but said nothing. He stepped forward, pressed a kiss to her forehead, and whispered, "All right." Don't, she said too quickly. Not unless you mean it. Jaime paused. I always mean it. Then he stepped into the elevator and he was gone. She didn't cry. Not then. Not when she finished her coffee. Not when she stepped into the exhibit gallery that afternoon and saw the final install with his fingerprints on her memory. But when she got home alone to the ghost of his warmth still living in the folds of her couch pillow, then yes, she let it crack her just enough to feel. Weeks passed. The exhibit launched to a packed crowd and glowing write-ups. Her name was in bold again, Elise Camden, the artist who shapes memory. The press loved her restraint, the way her curation felt like poetry wrapped in silence. She smiled through interviews, shook hands, accepted compliments, but only Vera saw the shift behind her eyes. You miss him, Vera said one night, pouring wine. I miss the version of myself I was when he looked at me. Vera didn't press, just refilled her glass. Elise sculpted more now. Not for exhibition, for herself, hands covered in clay. Most nights, just humming through the apartment, the window cracked open like she needed the city's breath just to stay grounded. She didn't wait for Jamie, but she didn't stop thinking about him either. Then nearly 2 months later, a postcard arrived. No return address, just a snapshot of a street corner in Montreal, handwritten words tucked below. Saw a sculpture that made me stop walking. Thought of yours, thought of you, still editing the world. Hope you're still shaping it. Jay. Elise stared at the card for a long time before placing it on her desk. She didn't reply. Not yet. A month after that, her museum hosted a local film festival screening night. One of the entries, unexpectedly, was a short-form doc titled The Space Between Versions, directed by Jamie Brooks. She froze when she saw the name in the program. She almost left. Almost. But when the lights dimmed and the film began, she stayed. It was short, 12 minutes, quiet, deliberate, a meditation on memory, movement, and reinvention. Shots of hands shaping clay, a woman's silhouette framed by gallery light. Audio layered with whispers about risk and grace. At the end, a quote appeared. Some people arrive as detours, some become destinations. Below it, one line, for E. She sat in the dark long after the applause faded, and then she stood, walked straight past the reception and into the street. Outside, the sky hung heavy with stars. Crisp air touched her skin. She pulled her coat closer, then felt a familiar warmth at her side. I wasn't sure you'd come, Jamie said. She turned. He was there, messy hair, hands in pockets, eyes full of question. I wasn't sure either, she whispered. They stood in silence. Then she asked, was I the detour? He smiled. No, you were the reason I found a better map. Her laugh cracked through the tension. That is exactly the kind of poetic nonsense I warned you about. I know, he said, but it worked. She looked at him for a long time. You're still too young, she said softer now. Jaime stepped closer. And you're still the age I need. Then he reached out, not urgently, not to convince, but with quiet intention, and she took his hand. They didn't make promises. They didn't need to. Some connections don't end. They pause, reset, begin again. And this time they walked forward together into whatever version of the future they chose to shape. The story of Elise and Jamie teaches us that life's most transformative moments often arrive uninvited, daring us to embrace vulnerability despite our fears. Elise, a woman hardened by past betrayal, swiped right by accident, yet Jamie's sincerity and persistence cracked her carefully curated walls. Their connection, born from an unexpected match, shows that love and growth don't adhere to timelines or age gaps. They thrive in honesty and courage. Elise's return to sculpting, sparked by Jamie's belief in her, reminds us that rediscovering our passions requires trusting ourselves again, even when it feels risky. Jamie's choice to see her not as a museum piece, but as a woman capable of starting anew, underscores the power of being truly seen. This story urges us to take chances on connections that challenge our comfort zones, to let others in, and to believe that every ending can lead to a new beginning. It's a heartfelt call to live bravely, to shape our own futures, and to cherish the people who remind us who we can be. What did Elise and Jamie's journey teach you about risk, love, or rediscovery? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're dying to hear your stories. If this tale stirred your soul, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join our community of dreamers and storytellers. Your support keeps these emotional narratives alive, so don't wait, subscribe now, and let's continue exploring the magic of human connection together.